Now broadcasting from the Next Gen Conservative Studio in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report with Sam Whitfield.
Alrighty, as always, Rumble is a bit slow in its delay, but we are here. So, welcome to the show, everyone. How are
Nothing but
doing?
high energy takes tonight, baby. I am exhausted. I'm not gonna lie.
It's been a rainy day, so it's kind of been like it's been a Jeb Bush type day here. Kind of low energy. But
just sit back with a bowl of guacamole and chill, man.
Hopefully we have less technical difficulties than remote connection problem Ron.
Well, we're not using Twitter Spaces, so that's
Thank God.
good.
Yeah, we were just off air talking about that, and I was pointing out the stupidity of Twitter Spaces, because I would use them, but you have to use your phone. If you can listen on desktop, but you can't speak. You can't even ask for permission to speak.
Well, Max, it's new technology to have a service that you can use on your phone and a computer, you know?
Yeah.
Google Hangouts never existed, right?
I love it because they never call Twitter a website either. They call it an app. Even Elon does that. And it's like,
yeah.
Okay. If he wants to do media and broadcasts on Twitter, which he's stated is his intent, let me use Elon, motherfucker. These cords right here indicate that this is an analog audio microphone. Okay. Let me use this on a Twitter space so it doesn't sound like I'm talking through a layer of static, and it doesn't unmute on accident when I accidentally fucking ass press my phone, and it doesn't echo when I do unmute because I'm listening, because you're listening on the phone as well as speaking on it. Herder Audio 101. Hey, Elon, why don't you ask some fucking audio people, some radio people, some podcast people, some live streaming people how to set it up? But I don't expect that because he likes to use it on his phone.
Well, you see, like Facebook Live, I'm going live, right? You'll see some crazy shit because normies will just stream like insane nonsense, right? The single mom puts the camera on, you know what I mean? You see the baby in the background, like playing with live electrical wires or whatever, right? You're just
she's
like
smoking
whoa.
crack.
Yeah, she's twerking, right? The inherent thing is that you don't get that on Twitter Live. It's just not the vibe. So I don't see the point in making it such a phone oriented thing to the point where you can't fucking stream on a desktop computer, especially when the point of it has largely become a place where people who have some notoriety or importance go to speak.
Well,
like, a presidential fucking announcement.
Right.
Well,
and I'm okay with them keeping it audio only, which prevents that kind of trashy stream that you're talking about for the most part. Because they'll just stream their phone and take the video camera off of it. It's great for it to be an audio open kind of forum. Anybody can join. You and I, that's our bread and butter. That's what we came from in this internet shit, is open panel type stuff.
Yes.
Schmooly, I mean. But I need to be able to use audio equipment that isn't my phone. That's all I ask.
Well, the other thing too is, like, even as a listener, like, okay, the Twitter files is a perfect example of this, right? Because the Twitter files, the initial hangouts for those would go for like 2 or 3 hours at a time. And I swear to God, at some point, like, someone on the panel was always saying, oops, I'll be right back, guys. Gotta go plug in my phone. Because I'm doing a long form audio thing that's taking up juice on my phone.
Well,
and it's like,
that's not going to change if you open it up to people like us, right? There's still going to be people doing that, and it's not going to harm them at all. But like, I should be able to select an audio input.
well,
It's not
yeah,
hard.
but like my point is too is like, see, having it on desktop or like my laptop, for example, like I've got my laptop. When I podcast, like I know I'm gonna be here for a while, so I just plug my computer in, and that way I don't have to like interrupt the show by like finding a power outlet to plug my phone in.
Sorry,
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, I think that making it audio only but allowing like OBS to stream directly to it from desktop would be like a huge improvement, right?
Yeah.
I don't even need OBS. I need to be able to select my audio input. That's
yeah.
like, it's not rocket science. I'm sure Elon could probably do the coding on this himself personally. But the thing is that we're shitting on it, and we're pointing this out because we actually like Twitter Spaces. I want them to be good.
Yes.
And right now they are not,
Luckily, it seems that Rumble is they bought a streaming company, is my understanding.
Okay, so they bought an app called Callin, which basically now in the beginning it was like mobile only, but they eventually did add like the feature to do web. And so essentially, like, you basically can on their website do what Max you want, which is basically, use your own rig on your computer to do like podcasts. Now,
because I'm going to tell you right now, why does this bug me so much is because I have this handheld Linux PC right here, the Steam Deck. It runs OBS out of the box, right? It's a gaming device, but I could stream from it. Give me a break. The technology is here. Let us fucking use it. People who know what they're doing. And the thing is I actually think a lot of the popular and this might be why he doesn't go in that direction. A lot of the popular fucking space people would be left in the dust because their content is bad. It's full of, audio problems and are you talking? Am I talking? These are people that don't know what they're doing. We could put on a much more professional fucking production than them very easily. And a lot of people could put on a way better production than us.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to Jesse's Twitter Spaces all the time.
Yeah.
He's all the time in Twitter Spaces, and like he does a better job than the vast majority of people, but you can definitely tell that he's still on a fucking cell phone.
Yeah.
Well, and so
he's like me. He's a guy that's got a really expensive studio with fucking professional audio equipment. He shouldn't have to use his phone, but he does.
And so that is kind of my question too, because like because a few weeks ago we talked about like I guess Tucker is going to be streaming to Twitter exclusively, and we've talked about that, and someone actually IRL actually talked to me and was like, so Tucker's gonna go from like his $1 million studio to using his iPhone to do Twitter Spaces now. Kind of seems like a major downgrade.
That's the perception, isn't it? Right? The perception of Twitter Spaces is their phone garb, and the more you listen to it, the worse it gets. You listen to ones by like Pod Awful. I mean, he's like an old school radio guy and all that. That's one thing, but you listen to a lot of these guys and they get popular because somebody famous comes in their stream and they think they're really good at this, but their audio's bad. They have no radio etiquette. They're all talking over each other. They're chewing, they got a bag of Doritos and they're like right in your ear. It's fucking and while somebody's talking too. So somebody's talking, this guy's got his mic open and he's eating a bag of chitlins or something. Who the fuck knows?
Well, and I mean the thing of it is the other appeal of like Twitter Spaces pre-Elon was that like hopefully you would get someone with a blue check mark, in your space, and that would attract listeners. However, the funny thing is like now that any of us can basically buy a blue check mark, like it's not that much of an audience attractor anymore, which believe me, I'm actually glad about that.
Look at me.
But
I am the check mark now.
that's another funny thing is like all these celebrities being like so and so is impersonating me, and it hurts me because because now my parody accounts have check marks and they shouldn't. And it's like go sit down, AOC. And by the way, like she has a great check mark or whatever they're doing for like government officials now. So like, yeah, she is still distinguishable, I guess.
Before we were talking AI before. There is one, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Since I do like the board gaming and role play gaming scene, and I've been shitting on Wizards of the Coast. Did you see the new Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering card controversy?
A little bit because my man Morpheus sent me something about that, but I'm not like it was only one thing, and I'm not like that familiar with it. So what happened?
Okay, so what happened is they released a series of Lord of the Rings themed Magic the Gathering cards. That's what they've been doing to try and remain relevant and get people to buy new card packs, as they've done crossovers with other brands. They did Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons, you name it. And they've now done Lord of the Rings, which is obviously a perfect fit for a fantasy card game, right? However, the artwork has upset some people. For example, the card featuring Aragorn, they have portrayed Aragorn, who is described as J.R.R. Tolkien as having like the fairest of skins and all of this, is black. And when people pointed out that that's not the character in J.R.R. Tolkien's books, nor is it similar to the movie, they're just racists, obviously. Like people couldn't be. And the people that I'm seeing complaining about it are just saying, I'm not going to buy this because it's empty virtue signaling. Now, that turns into from a guy who actually follows me, strangely enough, on Twitter, which is David Levitt, who's really popular within the board gaming community. And that's probably why he followed me, because he saw me posting about board game stuff. But David Levitt has decided that if you don't buy this card, that means you hate black people. Or if you think, this isn't like an art style that I'm cool with and it's too far from the source material, that just means you hate black people.
So
it's kind of like if you don't buy our merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're claiming. Because, if you don't buy Sam Whitfield Report merchandise, you hate black people.
Well, that's true, though. That's a different thing.
Okay.
It's not the same.
You not only do you hate black people, you hate disabled people, obviously.
Obviously.
No, but it's
I don't know, man. I don't see race. What race are you? I don't know.
But
I just see the wheelchair.
I do have another one that's somewhat interesting. Is I posted it in our Gilded earlier too. Is I'm not sure if it's real, but I'm going to try and bring it up on screen. They also did a version of Gandalf, and let me see. Again, this might be an internet fake. I can't 100% confirm it's legit because I'm not going to buy Magic the Gathering cards. I decided that was a scam fucking when I was in 5th grade. But this right here, I hope it's big enough for the audience to see, is Gandalf, Friend of the Shire. Or is it Gandalf-san? If you didn't notice, they made Gandalf Asian for no reason.
That looks more like the wizard from Big Trouble in Little Chinatown than it does
Yeah.
Gandalf.
Yeah. So
I
Wizards
mean,
of the Coast once again going full woke, and it's not doing well for them. I would recommend anybody, if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, if you're into Magic the Gathering. I don't think Wizards really has any other major properties, but if they do, just give them the Bud Light treatment. I'm serious on this. Give them the Bud Light treatment, because not
well,
only are they woke, not only are they pushing this political agenda down your throat, but on top of that, they're greedy. We just talked about this a few weeks ago. Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast sicked Pinkerton agents on people. They're the worst corporation I can actually think of right now. And so if you're into that shit, find an alternative. A D&D, hit me up on Twitter. I will help you find plenty of wonderful alternatives. And guys writing really cutting edge, cool shit like Venger Satanis, RPG Pundit, mid tier stuff like Red Room. They have a bunch of interesting games. There's so many alternatives out there. Don't give these people your money. They hate you and also want to preach at you and also want to extract every last cent in your bank account. Fuck Wizards of the Coast. And fuck Hasbro too, their parent company. And that's my rant.
this does bring up like an actual. So, someone DM'd me on Twitter and was like, "Hey, I listened to your show on the Dylan Mulvaney thing. Really good. Why do all these companies keep going woke even after the Dylan Mulvaney thing?" And my theory is it's because they think that like even though Budweiser was bad at it, or no, sorry, the Anheuser-Busch was bad. They think that they can make wokeism
It's
more
actually
advertisable.
it's actually simpler than that. Most of this shit, like in terms of movies, music, advertisements, advertising campaigns, things like that, this is what people don't understand, and you need to understand it. Several years in the making in each regard. So they probably came up with the I mean, they printed a can with the fucking dude's face on it, right? This wasn't something they put together in a week. This is something they've been working at probably for like 2 years or something, or a year at least. And this was something they had in the can. But it's worse. Like, that's an ad campaign, right? That takes probably a year to get off the ground. When you're talking major motion pictures, when you're talking video games, when you're talking music and all of this stuff, that shit gets, made and then edited and then all of that stuff over the course of 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years in some case. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're talking about this shit was conceived of when they had us by the balls. You know what I mean? And they had an audience for it. And so these corporations were looking for that audience. And once you have, particularly in the case, look at the Little Mermaid controversy, right? Obviously, Disney knew this was a bad film. Regardless of the Black Mermaid scandal, I've seen enough of it at this point to determine that it doesn't follow, like, it doesn't have a lot of the things that would attract kids. One of the things about Disney characters is their very striking design. This was a thing Walt Disney was very big on. And this is the thing that Bob Iger, who is now, again, the current CEO, also was big on, because he was in charge of Disney when they came out with The Little Mermaid, Lion King, Aladdin, the sort of millennial golden era of Disney. So he understands striking characters better than probably very, few other CEOs are as adept at this as him. But when he took over as CEO, they had already spent $800 million on this fucking film. Was he not going to release it? Of course he's going to release it. He was not there through the entire creation of that movie. And he did say that he might be wanting to take Disney in a different direction. But he knows, like I know, and like now our enlightened listeners know, is that that's not going to happen for like 5 years. And so in the meantime, the battles that they've already started, like with Ron DeSantis in Florida and all this other stuff, they kind of have to go in on it because now they understand the Bud Light treatment a little better, because the Bud Light treatment has now gone both ways, back and forth, where the other side is saying, I don't want Bud Light because they essentially cucked out on pride, right? They gave up and they're trying to appeal to these evil, hateful bigots. I'm not going to buy their beer. And so now nobody buys it. So Disney knows if they try immediately, and a lot of these big corporations too, if they try and take that immediate hard turn back to the center, not even the right, just the center, just towards apolitical, baseline content, that one, they're going to get the Bud Light treatment, and the left is immediately going to fucking start bashing them, cancel culture, all that shit. And two,
Yeah.
they don't have the content in the oven yet to back it up.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm glad that you mentioned the Budweiser thing, because like I used to drink Budweiser. One of my friends said, well, people will start buying Budweiser starting in July, because in July that's when they always do like the 4th of July super patriotic cans, and usually they'd be right. But I think this year I think they fucked up so bad on the Dylan Mulvaney thing that people aren't going to buy the American flag cans, even though that campaign has worked in the past, because
it's real easy not to. That's the thing of an organic boycott like this. And we've talked about this before. This isn't, nobody's directing this. This is what people are just saying, like they're fed up. And I put out a tweet the other day. I said, free advice to leftists. You're not fighting the far right extremists anymore. You're fighting the normies. That's what it is.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, well, the other thing too is it's like, okay, does Anheuser-Busch believe in anything? Because now they just seem disingenuous no matter what, because, right, like they did the Dylan Mulvaney thing, it didn't work, so they immediately flipped to the Harley Davidson, special edition for.
Pro tip, megacorps don't care about politics at all, and they're all fake woke. They're woke. Right. They're pushing their shit. There's people in there that believe in the cause, but the corporation itself answers to shareholders. And when you start losing them something like 12 or 15 billion dollars, they don't care so much about the politics at that point.
Yeah.
Now there are activist shareholders out there. There are left-wing communists that buy, venture capitalist types that believe in communism, and they'll buy up a bunch of stocks so that they can be essentially an activist stockholder to try and drive the company's politics left. But they're actually the minority. The majority of investors in all of these corporations, the only time they're going to demand a change in direction from that kind of thing is when they start losing money. Another great example of somebody that's turning the corner, in my opinion, is Warner Brothers. They put out a statement, an actual official statement from Warner Brothers about 3 months ago, saying that they want to get away from what they considered, quote, politically charged content, and get to what they want to consider, what they call, quote, middle America values. And I don't think what they mean by that is hardcore conservatism. I think what they mean by that is we should just get the fuck out of politics. And they had already made that decision in the board, and then the Harry Potter game happened and completely validated that decision.
It wasn't just the Harry Potter game, though. I have some insight. I have some insight.
But that was an example of it working, is all I'm saying.
No,
you could go from after that. You could go to the board and say, "See."
I'm actually glad that you brought up that example, though, specifically because I do have something to add on to that. So the thing with Warner Brothers in particular is interesting, because Warner Brothers is the parent company of HBO, right? I'm not sure if you knew that. A lot of people do, but so HBO for a long time, for really the past 40 years has been like was really the go-to for like premium cable
Right.
content.
When
They
when
they
I
were
was a
the
kid, if you wanted to see Hollywood pictures uncensored, it was only HBO. That's the only place. And then Showtime cropped up later, but HBO was the
right.
first. And that they would have R-rated films uncut without commercials, and that's why it was a paid premium channel. And then
So
they got into original content creation
right.
really early on. Like some of the old HBO originals, like a lot of people don't know a Fraggle Rock is an HBO original.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, it totally is. Um, but that original content and whatnot, like HBO had a monopoly on that, and then Netflix came in like almost a decade ago, literally this year, and change that with House of Cards. So fast forward to now, right? I promise I'm going somewhere with this.
Hmm?
Fast forward to just a year or so ago, Paramount Plus, which is Paramount Studios app, uh, propped up a few years ago, and HBO and everyone else like scoffed at them because they were like, "Oh, it's Paramount Studios. Who's going to subscribe to them?" And Paramount, they were the ones who released Yellowstone, which some people have tried to call, uber right wing nationalist, but no, it's a modern day Western that is non woke, doesn't preach identity politics. People
Right.
like it.
It's more inspired by probably as I've seen a little. I'm not a big follower. I don't watch a lot of anything, but I have seen the first couple
Right.
episodes. It seems to me it's based more off of like 60s, 70s westerns, not the spaghetti
Yeah.
westerns, more
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
John
No.
Wayne kind of stuff.
Yeah. No. It's more based off of like the 60s, 70s. But like the
Yeah.
thing is, it doesn't preach at you, right? So Yellowstone took off. It's taken off in the last few years, and it's made Paramount a shit ton of money. And meanwhile, HBO and Amazon and all, well, not so much Amazon because they've been pretty balanced, but all these other services, which is like HBO and Netflix, are now panicking because the kid that they made fun of, so to speak, which was Paramount, is now kicking everybody's asses in the streaming game, and they weren't expecting that. So now they're trying to ditch all their woke content and be more like Paramount Plus, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, and then there's the whole Warner Brothers and Paramount kind of debacle over South Park, right? Where South Park made a streaming deal with
Right.
I believe it was Warner Brothers first before Paramount Plus existed. And so now what they're doing is offering what they're calling a special, which is usually just a longer episode to Paramount, and they're also streaming new episodes of the show on Warner Brothers, and there's a lawsuit developing over this. The thing
Yeah.
is, there's very little content nowadays that is a subscription seller. There, like most people will subscribe to Netflix or Paramount Plus or whatever, one thing to watch one thing.
Yeah.
Most people are not subscribing to these services anymore because it's like Netflix used to be, where it was a one-stop shop for all kinds of things. Now everything is niche, everything, and they want you to have 5 different
Yeah.
subscriptions, and very few people do, except soy boys, I guess. I don't know who has more than like one subscription to, like, I don't even think I have any to
I
a video service.
I have to now. I technically have subscriptions to like multiple of the services, but I also have a relative who works in cable, so I get a lot of those for free anyway, but like I think the only one I actually pay for is Amazon, and that's because I subscribe to Amazon Prime.
I got
So
an uncle that works at Nintendo. Yeah, Sam's hoisting the black flag, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm just busting his ball. But no, like you don't subscribe to a lot of this fucking shit unless you have a lot of time to sit there and watch content. And guess what? A lot more people are watching shit, especially younger people. YouTube, even Rumble now, Twitch. What's the difference? Is they're providing content that's free, and then people will have 1 or 2 subs to stuff that they like. But I'm weird because I don't watch a lot of movies anymore. I don't watch TV.
yeah,
I'm a gamer. I like games. So if I have time to spare, I'm probably going to be playing a video game instead. My wife has subscriptions to shit. I could probably watch all this shit. I don't watch any of it, and the funny part is she doesn't watch most of it either.
I don't watch it. I don't watch it much. I mean, I do like it is funny because ever since getting my PS5, like yeah, I do game a lot more than I watch TV now. And then when I do watch TV, quote unquote, it's actual movies and whatnot. Like, and it's mostly stuff that I've already seen before.
It's funny
Which-
because people say like that. Like you said, I don't watch a lot, but like I bet you in comparison to me, you do. Because people ask me, "Oh, have you seen this show?" No. Have you seen this movie? No. Like,
Yeah.
unless you go fucking 15 years ago, the answer is probably no. I don't find the writing compelling. I don't find a lot of this shit compelling. And the reason I like video games is because I don't like just aimlessly sitting at a screen consume content. And a video game, I feel like my brain is involved. But that's
Yeah, well,
that's me. I read a lot of books.
Well, see, the thing I do is like I read like fictional books, and then I'll see like how the movie adaptation stacks.
I gave up on that a long time ago because I've always been disappointed. Always.
Yeah, yeah.
Very rarely. The first couple seasons of the show, Dexter, was pretty good in comparison to the book it was based off of. There's a handful that I can point to.
Yeah, of the Jeff Lindsay books, yeah.
But a lot of it that gets translated from novels, I end up really, really disliking, and so I stopped doing that.
Yeah, the Terminalist is the only book series that like got successfully made into a show, and that's actually good, and that's because they actually told the author, we want you as a writer on this thing, which is smart of them to do. And I mean, it's a good show, but basically that's all Amazon has right now, and that's because they have Chris Pratt starring, basically. So
you'd be surprised how much of that went over my head. Like, that's another one. People will point out famous actors, and I know that Chris Pratt is a famous actor, and I think I've seen him in something or other, but like to place him as who he actually is, I actually can't do that. So what's his most famous role?
So
was he in Marvel or something?
He was. Yeah, he was Star-Lord in one of the Avengers movies, and then
I know who Star-Lord is.
He was also on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, never watched that.
Okay.
That's like a sister show to The Office, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, The Office is trash, so I don't watch that shit.
So you're the way I am with you're the way with celebrities, the way I am with like internet people, where I'm just like, I know Mr. Medicare is, but who is PPP? What?
Oh no! Hold on. That's fair, right? Because who is PPP is a good question. I still don't know the answer. So, no, it's just
I don't think anyone does.
I grew up idolizing like Hitchcock and like old 50s and 60s stuff. I watched a lot of it with my granddad. And if you watch that stuff a lot, and then you watch modern anything, you can very quickly notice that they talk to you now like you're a child, and I don't
Oh,
appreciate that.
oh, fuck yeah! No, I'm not disagreeing. Like, look, someone gave me crap today because, and by the way, happy 93rd fucking birthday to the living legend, Clint Eastwood, my favorite director and actor of all time, bar none. Yeah, like you, Max. I watch a lot of old stuff. I mean, and
I'll
Clint,
tell you
like,
this: if Clint Eastwood makes a movie, I go out of my way. But yeah,
well, yeah, Clint East, like, as far as like, someone asked me like, who's your favorite like action star, right? And like everyone in my friend group was like, oh, The Rock,
if they're a little older, they'll say
you know,
Stallone or
Stallone,
Schwarzenegger.
and I said Clint Eastwood, and they were like, my grandpa, my grandpa says, and it's like, well, yeah, because like, you know, like
But
granted, Clint,
I don't
like all the,
expect people to be weird like me either. I know why people veg out and watch stuff. I just don't. But my only thing is don't give them your money if they're hating you. You know,
yeah,
that's my only thing. If their whole thing is pushing this agenda down your throat that you're bad, your beliefs are bad, Trump bad. If you like him, you're bad. DeSantis bad too. If you like him, you're bad. Like, why do you give people that feel like you're evil money? And a lot
well,
of normies said that exact thing about Bud Light. This wasn't like, oh, we're all going to get together and organize a boycott. Those don't work. What this was is, oh, Bud Light, that's cringe. That's what's happened now. Everybody's like afraid.
yeah,
When the topic of beer came up, I think I mentioned this last week, but it's happened again since then. In my chat in World of Warcraft, somebody mentioned beer, and the guild master was like, "Hey, no political discussions, please. Just the word beer,"
yeah,
and nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole because
no,
you might be in mixed company because these are all random people playing a game, right? And so some people are going to be on one side, some people are going to be on the other, and then you just turn guild chat into World War III. And two, both sides have reason to say that Bud Light is cringe.
no. I actually had a similar experience when I was playing Call of Duty online the other night because someone was saying, "Well, June's coming up," and the same thing. It's like, and and the person who was leading our party was like, "Look, uh, I don't want to, I don't want to get into any controversial topics here. Let's just play this next
By the
round."
way, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, that is a good strategy on how to handle those kind of situations. Is you come off like they don't necessarily know what you're about because you're like, yeah, man, we're just doing this thing here. You know, it's harder to do with like your family and stuff. But if you're interacting with people online in potentially mixed company, just saying, hey, man, we shouldn't be doing politics. Let's just do the game or let's just do this thing is a much easier way than arguing with ideological people. Unless you like that kind of thing. And sometimes I do. So I don't always follow my own advice. But it is an easier way to get past it because, like thinking about my guild, right? I know some of the people in my guild that I really, really like, I'm going to disagree with so fucking strongly that it's not worth talking about. You know?
Yeah, well, my my thing too is like the thing that right wingers do is like, and they haven't done this with the Budweiser thing, right? But like they've done it with like plenty of other things, like um, the Gillette when Gillette did their man campaign a few years ago. The Daily Wire's response was, "Oh yeah, well we're gonna make our own razors now," or something like that, and they did the same thing with like Hershey's, and thank God none of these right-wing grifters actually decided to like make a beer. Everyone was just like, yeah, go support your local brewery or something.
Right. I've said before, my beer of choice has always been Sam Adams. Yes, they have a Pride beer. Aside from that, are they pushing shit down my throat? No. Is the Pride flag on the main beer? No. The Pride beer is the Pride beer, and they sell it, and you can go buy the Pride beer if you want to. If you want a Boston Lager, it's the same as it's always been. They don't talk about this shit in their advertising. They talk about beer. They talk about what it takes to make a good beer. That's and that this is again the Budweiser thing. They think that camo cans and fucking Harley Davidson is the answer. No, the answer is make a good product. And what got you to the game in the first place was talking about, it's an American beer that is for the working man. And they weren't talking about the political aspect of it. They were talking about the whatever. They were talking about your status in terms of economics,
Well, but also, did you see the?
I'm overtired. I'm apologize.
No, I mean it's fine. But did you see the ad that they did like 3 days after the Dylan Mulvaney thing, where they literally tried to do just that, and it like came off horribly?
The Clydesdales?
Yeah, they like.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, they did an ad, where it was like someone in marketing like basically typed into a ChatGPT like make the most American Budweiser like ad campaign you can think of, and they literally just like took like what AI thinks of when it thinks of Americana and just did that. It was like the most low effort. Like,
right. Well, and then conversely, when I compare it to a Sam Adams commercial, it's usually like, what's the founder's name? Jim Koch? I think it's Jim Koch. And he's like, I'm Jim Koch and I really love beer. And here's a tour of our brewery. And here's some of the values we hold as a company. And they're not diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know what I mean? It's like make a good product and treat your customers fairly and stuff like that. And that's all he says. I have no idea what his politics are. He's probably a flaming lefty, if I were to guess, because he's from Boston. But I can't discern that from the way he runs his company at all.
I will even say this, like the people who brew Fat Tire, New Belgium in Colorado. New Belgium is like the owners are proud like Democrat supporters. They donated to Obama in 2008. Like the owners are like publicly liberal, but the one thing that they don't do, they don't advertise. They don't like stick their politics on their branding in New Belgium. I do know that they had a Pride beer, but again, it was like a special edition for Pride. It wasn't the main thing. So.
Yeah. And Budweiser just the funniest part about the whole thing is they don't have any idea how to fix it at all. And everything they try makes it worse. And I don't expect that to change soon. In terms of, you mentioned a friend that had said July that their sales will crop back up. I don't know. Labor Day weekend was their worst weekend ever. And Labor Day weekend is usually a big Bud Light fucking weekend. I can say I've been to a lot of cookouts where they have kegs and 30 packs and it's all Bud Light because generally speaking, before all this, people have to remember Bud Light was considered the most ubiquitous beer, even though most people who like beer don't like it. But most people who don't like beer do. And so if you're in mixed company and you're not sure, the safe one to get was Bud Light, because even some chicks will drink Bud Light and dudes will drink Bud Light, and it was always that. So I went to some party, Labor Day cookouts and stuff, and there was not a Bud Light anywhere to be seen this year. I've never seen that before. Not once.
No. I mean, Budweiser.
I did encounter Bud Light, but it was Vietnamese people at the beach.
Oh yeah.
And he was just like, "You drink beer?" And I was like, yeah. I was trying to be polite. Yeah, he handed us 2 Bud Lights. I looked at my buddy, and we kind of, laughed. It's like, I don't know. Like, we're just like, do we tell this guy to not hand people Bud Light in America right now?
Well, like, my first reaction would be like, no, sir, I'm not gay. Thank you.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, does this guy know? Because I just was thinking he probably went to the store, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this whole thing is like $1."
Yeah.
I love America, USA.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like, well, that's the thing. Like, like Budweiser used to like. Budweiser, along with Coca-Cola and Apple Pie and the Ford Motor Company, that basically was like part of like American, iconic branding.
The old Budweiser logo with like the kind of bow tie shape was at one time the most recognized symbol on earth.
Oh yeah, but
more than even the Coca-Cola logo, which is saying something.
Well, it's like the old saying goes, like, there's no need to break why break something when it already works? And
for communism.
Yeah.
That's what this is, right? These are activists that they have to do everything politically. They have to push, they want to put the same kind of shit on us, like the same label, because conservatives react to things or talk about politics. But like, if not for their bullshit, most normal people didn't even engage with politics to this degree. And now you've stepped into their domain with the Dylan Mulvaney thing and the Target thing as well now. Shout out to Fagagio Blow getting number 1 on iTunes with his Boycott Target song. This is organic.
I saw that.
These are not us, right? Even. And we're more political than most people. These are normies, and they walk into Target and they're appalled. They see the Dylan Mulvaney thing and they're appalled. They're normal people who are like, this is way too far. They don't hate trans people, for one. That's important to remember. They don't actually care, most normies, about trans people, unless you're pushing it on their kids or, getting in their face with it.
Yeah, well, I would go a step further, Max. It's not even that they don't hate transgenders. It's normies still don't understand transgenders, I would say. So
no, they understand enough to know like the normie response to it is like, yeah, everybody can live the way they want to live. And but then it's literally the no step on snack. They're like, everybody can live the way they want to live. And then they got stepped on and they fucking struck.
Yeah,
that's it. And it's as simple as that. And it didn't start with Bud Light. I'll tell you that. I've seen it at PTO meetings in person. It started with the school shit. Everybody went to my kid's school. A bunch of concerned parents at a PTO meeting asking about this shit. And it turns out that they're actually not pushing anything like that at that school. But you got to be involved. I think I said that last week. You got to be involved. That's the big thing. If your kid's in a public school or even a private school now, you got to be involved. And then I know there's doomers that'll be like, oh, you should homeschool. You should homeschool. Well, you fucking homeschool. All right. Like, I have it's not for everybody. Okay. That's all I'm saying. Not everybody's in a position that they can spend 8 hours a day homeschooling. Okay. Especially for little ones. And also, I like my kid going to school. He's the most popular kid in his school, but I can't take my eye off the ball. So I still have to dedicate a significant amount of my time to his school. Maybe not as much as homeschooling, but I know all his teachers. I talk to them. I know what he does in school. I know videos that they watch. She sends us an email. We know the lesson plans. We know what they're doing, but you have to do that, right? You can't just let it ride, because then next thing you know, your kid's secretly transgender. But that was what riled up normies long before Bud Light. I promise you. And I mean, you can include like minority groups in this, because there were Black and Hispanic parents at this same meeting, and they were some of the loudest ones on the topic, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, is this whole transgender thing. As my Cuban neighbor said, meh, this whole transgender stuff is a bunch of white shit. Is a bunch of white people. I can't do a Cuban accent. I apologize. But they were saying, yeah, this transgender stuff is white people shit, basically.
I would venture to guess that in the Cuban population specifically, the number of transgenders is probably the lowest of almost any ethnic group in America. It's particularly Cuban. Cubans not big on the gay shit. Just calling it out there. Not by and large.
No.
There's obviously gay and proud Cubans out there, I'm sure, right? But as a population group, especially in Florida, I've known a few Cubans down there in my day, and they don't really like the gay shit, any of it, you know. But they're not hateful either. They're just like, yeah, we don't. That's not part of our culture. Yeah, and then of course they'll get lectured that they're being racist or whatever, and it's like, fuck you, it's not. Like the Cuban culture is very masculine, actually. That's just what it is.
Yeah, no. One of my neighbors got accused of being a racist by some liberal chick, and he's an immigrant, right? So, my neighbor just goes, "I am, how you say in English, a brown person, so therefore I can't be racist."
It turns out you can, but only a white supremacist. That's what we've learned the last couple of weeks. You can be a brown or black or whatever kind of Asian, whatever kind of person. I don't even know. Here's the thing. When I was a kid, saying brown was like super fucking offensive. Calling somebody a brown person or a colored person was super offensive when I was a kid. Now that's what they want to be called. I have trouble keeping up. The black people I know, black and brown or whatever people I know in real life, don't get hung up on that shit. Only like middle-aged white soccer moms get hung up on that shit in real life, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I got told by someone that I shouldn't use the word disabled. I should use the word differently. I should use the word differently abled, and I'm like, what the fuck does differently abled? This is all I want to know. We all have different abilities, all of us.
Right. So the question is then to this person, obviously hypothetically, if his abilities are different than mine, what ones does he have physically that I don't? You know what I mean? It's not differently abled, it's disabled. Certain things are just cut off because of your physical condition. George Carlin went into this in one of his most famous if you want to listen to the stand-up of it, it's called Parental Advisory Explicit Lyrics was the name of the record. But he talks about the euphemisms, and it's interesting to see, because I actually once got suspended from school in middle school for doing that bit, and the English teacher chick heard me, and she was like super offended. But the idea is using flowery language for things like differently abled. I believe in the example he used, it wasn't differently abled, it was handy capable. Yeah, you're not disabled, you're not handicapped, you're handy capable. Oh, that makes it so much better, because now that you called it that, it's fine that I can't walk, right? No, fuck you, man. It's like, You know, it's a set of
yeah.
challenges that you have and you're aware of and you deal with every fucking day. And however you want to fucking define it is fine by me. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
well,
it assumes that you're a fucking child and you need it told to you with fucking a spoonful of sugar, right? It's like,
yeah,
nah, this motherfucker knows. He's been this way a long time at this point. He doesn't need you to pussyfoot around the goddamn issue.
yeah. In fact, it's actually an insult when people do. It's like I've been living with this shit for basically my entire fucking life. I'm pretty sure that after almost 30 years of this shit, I can handle the truth that yes, I am in fact disabled.
Right.
Shocker, I know.
And it's not even that big a deal in terms of, you know, you still have a life. It's different than other people's in a lot of ways, but you rock it. You do your thing, and nobody fucking cares. You don't need to be treated like, oh well, you have special abilities. Like, no, actually not. And you know, we were talking about this before. The cybernetics. You mentioned that the great segue into AI, by the way. You mentioned using AI or text to speech applications helped you greatly in your education, and
Yes.
I said, yeah, like that kind of technology, they always don't want to talk about the benefits. Like cybernetics, people are like, oh, cyberpunk. Yeah, but if I could get Sam a set of robot legs and he could cruise around town, I'm sure he'd fucking love it. I'm sure it would make things a lot easier for him, right?
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing. If I could, and again, this goes back to kind of so I've had this conversation off air and with people, and Max and I just talked about. Look, I get the fear behind AI, and it's not completely justified, but I'm sorry, just because ChatGPT is ultra responsive now, that does not mean that the Terminator is going to happen overnight. Could we get to a point where it gets to Terminator levels of, AI? Yeah, but that's like way off.
And
If
because ChatGPT isn't going to be Skynet, and I can tell you why, because it's not that advanced actually. It's and Kurt said this when he was on the show a couple months back, right? Kurt Doolittle. It's literally it's a really advanced Markov chain bot, which is the simplest kind of chatbot that exists. All it
yeah,
does is it has a database of stuff and it uses all of that to model human speech back to us. That's all it really is at its core. It's looking through a database and it's learning how to talk to us. And that's why when it's great that you can have the conversations back and forth with ChatGPT, that's built in on purpose, because if it says stuff that doesn't make any sense, you'll say something, right? And it learns from that. It learns the best ways to word things, but it's still it's using a Bible of a set number of potential combinations of words, how they'd be used, and it was all written by a human. It's not actually thinking like you or I. It's checking the database and giving a response to emulate human speech. That's it. And this is why you can get we were talking about this off air. You can get it to say that's against the rules, and then it will immediately break those rules because it doesn't think like us. It doesn't have that kind of chain of logic. It doesn't have a
yeah,
sense of time as well. It's as far as it's concerned, it's at a stagnant point in time because it's not capable of these kind of abstractions. It seems like it might be, because to the untrained eye, it emulates human speech so well that you think that that's what it's doing, but it's not. It's literally a chat bot. That's all it
yeah.
is.
So the way I think of like AI technology, specifically with ChatGPT, right? Because as someone who writes both professionally and as like a hobbyist, I basically use ChatGPT as like a glorified virtual assistant slash editor for
Right.
when I write stuff.
Like
And
the next step of Grammarly or something.
yeah, yeah, I literally use it as well, not just Grammarly, but also Stories, which Stories is like a story plot software. Um, like okay, so literally, like I wrote this article on my experience of using AI as a disabled person, right? I wrote a rough draft, and then I pasted it into ChatGPT, and I'm like, restructure this uh, as like a blog post, and it got rid of a bunch of jargon and wordiness that I've been using. It corrected my punctuation and whatnot, which is pretty good, but still, I mean, it just proofread everything and made it a lot tighter than it was.
And
And
one of
afterwards,
those
I'm like,
blog posts is what I was referencing, right? You made the blog post about using AI or some type of technology, because
yeah,
like people got to understand. I'm sure holding a pencil wasn't the easiest thing in the world for you, but text to speech probably opened up a lot of fucking doors.
I can tell you that it did, and I mean, I think, and again, going back to my blog post, I don't think people think that the AI thing because of ChatGPT is brand new, but no, in reality, like I'll give a really easy example for some of the older listeners here, and by older people I mean people my age and Max's age. But like, if you grew up with, if you ever used like an iPod or ever had to plug in like your MP3 player to a computer, there was a database at one point that would guess like songs that you should buy off of the iTunes store or off Amazon based on what was already on your device. Now that was very limited version of AI, but that was still AI nonetheless. It was using an algorithm to like customize it to you, and that's still AI. It might seem simple, but it still fits the case.
Hmm.
Um, and in terms of like text to speech, like the old software, uh, like I had to train like the like Dragon Speak to like recognize my voice for like an hour and to like recognize my nuance, and it had to like build a database around
Dragon,
the
yeah, Dragon Speak back in the day did all this stuff. For those that don't know, it was a software like that, but it was a lot bigger
I
learning curve.
I utilized it in middle school. The big thing was that you had to teach it
Hmm.
your voice.
Right.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, and oh yeah, let me tell you, like
Oh
it
yeah.
was it was a really useful tool, but I will tell you, at at certain points when I was in middle school and well, more in middle school, but like even in high school a little bit, it got to be a real pain in the ass because when I
Because
was
because your voice had changed a little and you had to retrain it.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, and not just once, not just on a monthly basis. It was like a weekly
Yeah.
basis at one point almost, and so it was like
When it
it's
can
like
be the most useful to somebody like you, right? Middle and high school, that's when your voice is changing and it creates a whole new set of, okay, I got to use the Dragon Speak today. I'm going to have to retrain it.
yeah. Although to be fair, like I, despite all the glitches, it also came up with like some hilarious
I
glitches
bet.
too at one point, like because I can't remember what the word I can't even remember what the initial word I was trying to say was, but it was something like really innocuous and innocent, right?
Mhm.
But because my voice had changed, I think it like translated whatever I was saying into like into like holy fuck or something like that. It was like some X.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so the modern stuff is obviously leagues better in that. Like if you if you pick up, most people got a phone and they can say a thing, I'm not going to say the word this time. I know I triggered people on previous episodes by saying Alexa, but Alexa, play pornography. No, sorry. You pick up your phone, you say the keyword to it, and most of the time it gives you a close approximation of what you've said without too much fuckery. Whereas, the Dragon Speak, there was constantly tinkering, constantly messing with it. By the way, enjoy that porn, guys. I'm sure
Well, and
Alexa's helping you out.
and also not to mention that there was a lot of content changing. Also, like the Dragon actually speaking, uh, like when I first started using it, at least like it was $1,000 just for the software itself. Now, eventually got cheaper with like each version, and eventually it basically like became obsolete once once all the devices just had it built in it, and it was pretty good, but still. Um,
Hey Siri, what is bestgore.com? I'm so sorry. I apologize.
uh, now see now see this is why you use headphones when you podcast, because
That's right. Or when you're listening to us.
I know two guys that were roommates, and they were talking about how the Alexa could listen to them, and so it just started sounding like making up fucked up things about the other guy and telling Alexa it.
Amazing.
And then they got done and they're like, that was probably not the best thing to do,
yeah.
Like, it probably was not the best thing to tell Alexa that your roommate is a kitty diddler.
Right.
Probably.
well I can well, again, this goes back to the whole thing of well, the government is spying on you, and it's like, well, maybe they are, but like I would almost feel sorry for the guy who has to like watch just like
Oh, our Fed is probably at his wit's end. Because one, we don't offer anything of value for him, because strongly disavow violence and stuff like that. But two, he has to imagine reading our Gilded server for one. By the way, if anybody wants to join the Gilded server, hey, come join. We have a good time. But imagine being that guy reading just the memes and stupid, inane bullshit conversations we have, or me just giving dad advice to people. Like you're the Fed, and you're like, oh, is this guy talking about joining boxing gym again? Fuck's sake.
yeah.
I feel for him. I actually I have some solidarity. Our Fed, I feel your pain. Maybe you should get a real job.
yeah. Well, they're not getting paid. They're not getting paid enough to watch this either. Like,
no, this is intern shit right here.
Like my
we don't even get an agent. Maybe not even an intern. We get like a druggie that they're trying. You know what I mean? And it's like, watch this and tell us if anything bad happens. That's what we get.
What I'm assuming that my Fed at this point is like Sam, I would donate to your show, but I make less than you do, and doing this show.
True. Yeah, man. You go out and don't do that for the government anymore. They don't appreciate you. We appreciate you.
You know what?
You lovingly read through everything we're writing. You're listening to everything. You're our biggest fan. And as our biggest fan, I just want to say you deserve better than what the government is treating you like.
Yes.
Go get a job in the private industry. You'll feel better, I promise. You get paid more too.
Hey, at least with the Fed watching me, you actually get to see some attractive ladies at times, instead of whatever non-binary propaganda they're forcing you to see like on the government site, so that's good at least.
Well, I mean, if they spy on you, they get the old playboys. They spy on me, they get the thick goblin chicks. So,
That sounds about
Well,
right.
yeah,
ooh, goblina.
they and if they spy on Alex, they just get a man with his wife, basically.
Fucking lecture. A
Yeah.
fucking lecture and talking about like 2009 like it was recent.
It was. It
because
never
because
ended.
because it was recent.
No, it really was, right? Because like we got the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare and classic Wrath of the Lich King launched, and a new metal was on the charts. Yeah, it was 2009, just like 6 months ago. What are you talking about?
So sometimes it really does feel like that, though.
Well,
I'm
it should,
not-
because 2009, really 2014 is where I think it really went off the rails. But like 2009 is a great time capsule of what things used to be like. Like we used to have
Yeah.
stuff. We used to have stuff. It was good. Life was good. You didn't have to be a political F slur all the time.
Well, I mean, like I hate to say this, but like as far as like, it's interesting that you say that, because like as much as I dislike him, if I had to, I would take Obama over Biden in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but that's not actually a choice. Like Biden is just Obama's third term. But
Yeah,
they had to accelerate it because they had 4 years of Trump in between. But
yeah, I know.
Biden or Hillary in 2016 would be pretty much identical, just a continuation of those policies, stacking federal agencies. Now they want to stack the IRS, but they already stacked the FBI and the CIA under Obama, so it's not that much of a fucking stretch. And the IRS was already stacked with left-wingers to begin with. We know this because they literally just went after right-wingers in 2012. Went after the Tea Party and shit. So we kind of know that they're already stacked.
Yeah.
Biden's dream was to stack the court, but he played it too close to the sun, and that's not going to happen unless on the off chance that Biden gets 80. Well, he got 81 million, they say, right? 81 million illegal votes or whatever. If he got 150 million next time, he could totally stack the court. And that's possible with the way they steal votes. They could do it.
Oh, yeah.
We could get 70 million dead people voting next year. That's possible.
It's, I mean.
All right. That's the big lie, right? We're not supposed to talk about that.
Well, thank God for Rumble, where we can talk about.
True.
That. Well, I mean, so going back to AI, this does tie it back in. I wasn't aware of this until this week, but apparently Kamala Harris, of all people, is the new czar is like Biden's new AR, or AI czar.
It makes a lot of sense because she's an NPC, so she understands the inner workings of robots very well.
I like it, but no, seriously, none of these people on, like, she's the
boomers and technology go together like fucking oil and water, dude. And any boomer, and like, I know it's, again, when I talk about the boomer stuff, there's always going to be that one guy, but like, my dad worked in the tech field. I get it, right? You had the boomer that understands tech, but then think about all the other boomers, especially if you're a tech guy like me. What do you think this is? They're all like, hey, you know how to fix computers? Can you fix this? And they hand it to me, and it's like covered in an ice cream. You open it up and there's a dead rat inside, and they're like, oh, I don't know why it didn't work. Oh, and it's running Windows ME for some reason. Boomers and technology, and this is why them legislating technology has been such a. The DMCA is one of the worst ways that they could have dealt with copyright in the digital era.
Yeah,
But it was written in the early 2000s when we didn't really know how the internet was going to grow by boomers. It was written by boomers. That, think about that. Boomers nowadays have experienced like smartphones and like social media sites. Think about in the early 2000s. We didn't even have those things. And what was their exposure to the internet? Somebody would come in front of Congress and say, my kid talked to a bad person on the internet. And they're like, oh, this is bad. We're going to like, don't let boomers legislate technology. We need, if there's one thing I could suggest to the audience is for the most part on a local and congressional level, especially vote out boomers and older. Just vote them out. Get them out of there. Get them out of there. They don't understand the shit. They're legislating us into corners that we can't get out of. They're like the ban TikTok thing. It's like, yeah, we got to ban TikTok. Also, we got to have unprecedented spying power on you. That's boomer shit right there. That's what they do.
Yep. Well, because
the bill could have been, you know, hey, Chinese corporations can't sell their shit on they can't sell their digital services. Right? It's like a literal like one-page bill. Instead, it's like, no, the head of the Trade Commission needs to be the one to unanimously fucking decide.
And meanwhile, to show that you're not violating this, we need to look at everything you ever post online, and also they even tried an amendment for Real ID for the internet, so no more anonymity, which is the most, by the way, most unconstitutional thing you can think of. Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Now we know it's Thomas Paine now. Originally published by Anonymous, sparked the revolution that founded this country. Was an anonymous treatise on the monarchy, right? And the reason it was anonymous is because saying that out loud, the king could have you beheaded. So you had to be anonymous. If you have, this goes back to the whole right to offend thing. I'm glad that people have been sharing around my old video of that because the speech is so good. We have to have this kind of speech that offends and upends the orthodoxy, because that's how we move forward.
Yeah.
And if you censor unpopular speech, that's just tyranny. That's what it is. If you censor your people that speak out against you because they're offensive to the tradition and the status quo. This is why I don't want to kill commies, just for being commies. I'd rather argue against commies, right? The problem is that commies take it to the streets. Commies take it to a physical level. So unfortunately, a lot of times the only way to deal with communist, regimes or like, extremist groups is through violence, unfortunately, because they're violent. But ideally, I don't give a fuck if you want to talk about the Communist Manifesto, right? Because, I don't think that's going to move us forward. But cutting you off, I'm probably going to cut off 10 other people that might move us forward, right? It's just, you have to be able to talk about this shit. And that's why the First Amendment is so goddamn important. It wasn't there to protect popular speech. You don't have to protect popular speech. People do that organically. You have to protect unpopular speech. And yes, that includes hate speech, unfortunately, whether you like it or not.
Well, and also, like, this goes back to the whole thing with AI and why, and I was thinking at this, Max, because like originally I was on like Elon Musk's side of regulation, but then I went back to like our podcast and what you said about why it shouldn't be regulated. The argument for them basically for Congress, why Congress wants to regulate it, is basically for the it might potentially say bad words and offend someone, right. which is the word again. Boomers don't understand how this works. So,
what the potential that Elon was talking about there is real. The potential for it to be used
Yeah.
and misused for propaganda, which is why it should just be neutral. If it's neutral and we can use it for propaganda, they can use it for propaganda, everybody can use it for propaganda, then it's on equal footing. Unfortunately, the other thing is, this is a problem you face with regulation, just period, right? Any regulation. The people who are lobbying for it have a vested interest in it. Elon Musk doesn't need to break into the AI business. So it's real easy for him to say, oh, we should put up all these regulations. But what if you had a really, really great AI startup thing, and now all these regulations have put such an undue financial burden on the things that you need to do? You're cut out of the market. That's why they fucking do it.
And that was literally the argument I heard from David Sachs yesterday as to why regulating AI is a bad idea. Because OpenAI, uh, OpenAI, the company that owns ChatGPT, they're saying regulate us, but the reason why they're saying regulate us is so that they and Microsoft and Google and Apple can all build this like little moat around AI so that they can have all the licenses
Oh,
and none of these other startups can.
well,
Right?
and we've seen this in the tech field before. That's how I know it's not a theory; it's a fact. It's called Comcast. Everybody heard of Comcast? As the good man Trump says, Concast. What do they do?
Yep.
What did they do? They regulated the cable industry over years and years. They lobbied for all these regulations surrounding wires, ownership of the wires, laying the wires, things that you couldn't use their wires without a deal that with them and the FTC. So that's why, and then some municipalities basically just said fuck that, and they took the fucking wires for the town or whatever. And so that's why you have like local IPs and ISPs and shit. But generally speaking, Comcast, the only people who can create an alternative to Comcast in most places is a local municipality because it's a government. But if you're a small company and you wanted to start up a cable or internet providing company, Comcast has regulated you out of the market. You need like a 500 million market cap to get in there, boy. And you need to have all their regulations met for your service and the frequency it travels on and blah 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 to send it over their wires. And they own the wires and they can just say no. And they lobbied for this situation that gives them a pseudo monopoly. This wasn't something that organically happened. This was something they lobbied out all of the competition and all the smaller cable companies too, and even some of the larger ones, like AT&T at one point. Once they hit a rough patch, Comcast is like, aha, we can buy them out and then use their lobbyists to do even more. This is what's going to happen with AI. If you push for regulation in AI, what you're going to get is companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google are going to push the regulations that benefit them and keep everybody else out of the market because and it's in their best interest to do so. Why would they want other competition in the market? It doesn't help them in the least.
Right. No, people. It's kind of a meme now, but it's also true that Sam Altman should rename OpenAI to Closed AI because that's exactly. It's not open at all. It used to be, but it's not.
Right. And what you're seeing is the formation of not a monopoly on AI, but a cartel. Microsoft and Google and all of these companies don't step on each other's toes. They step on the little guy's toes. They're all cool with saying, okay, you can have your Google Bard and we'll have ChatGPT and all of these things, but they're working together. They're cooperating to close the market off for everybody. It's called a cartel. It's like the oldest economic principle next to a monopoly. And
Yeah.
and they express this cartel in multiple other ways. Of course, Twitter is not kind of a part of the cartel now per
Not
se.
now, but
they were.
But it was for a long time. Like and even
It was, I would say it was like the beating heart of the cartel, actually.
well, so as much as people dislike them and whatnot, like I I listened to Mark Zuckerberg's last interview on Rogan because, like the creepy robot man or not, I still think it's worthwhile hearing what he has to say. And basically, before Elon bought it, he was like, "Yeah, I don't even really even see Twitter as like Facebook's competitor, really." I mean that was what Zuckerberg said like a year ago. So,
Yeah. Yeah, but
um,
the people pushing for regulation. There's actually, I hate PC Gamer. They're awful, but there's an interesting title to an article that they put out today, and it kind of speaks to what I'm talking about. And it's one of those points where we can actually find some common ground with lefties, because they kind of see that it's a scam too when they put out an article like this. AI industry begs someone to please stop the AI industry before all human life is extinguished by the AI industry. Now, they understand that if it's the AI industry asking for regulations, that maybe it's not a great thing. And the humorous way they phrase it there is to kind of point to, they want regulation, but they don't trust the AI people to do the regulating. But guess what, PC Gamer? Who the fuck do you think is going to do the regulating? Oh, the
right.
FTC? The FTC is going to do it? Yeah, of course they're going to do it. And they're going to have a meeting about it. They're going to have one of those hearings. And on this side, they're going to have all the people from Google. And on this side, they're going to have all the people from Microsoft. And then they're going to have the OpenAI fucking CEO come in and testify. And they're all going to agree on what the regulations should be. And then the boomers and
Well,
the FTC are going to say, yeah, we'll do all that. They're not going to come in with people that oppose regulation. They're not going to come in with some small startup guy that has this great AI thing that he's not broken into the market with yet. They're going to ask Microsoft and Google, and that's it.
well, and it's funny because that is exactly what happened. I guess Sam Altman was, in Congress, I guess like 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
talking to AI, and basically, like, from what I heard on the All In podcast, Sam Altman basically did just that. He was like, "Hey, I don't trust AI, but hey, why don't you fund a commission, or a
Mm.
panel, a government panel, and oh, by the way, I'll be like the head liaison from Silicon Valley." So yeah,
If
like
you've understood economics and regulation over a longer time scale, and I think this is a problem I come across with a lot of younger guys, is they don't have the time scale to know this stuff. Like, a lot of their experience has been in this kind of bubble of misinformation that we live in now. But like, you could see over time, they did this with the internet originally in the 90s. They did this with telecommunications in the 80s, right? Breaking up Ma Bell and all that stuff. They did it with, or the 70s or whatever. They did it with the railroad industry. The railroad industry and the Rockefellers got to regulate themselves. And wouldn't you know it, only Rockefellers owned railroads. Wow. Things like that. Um, and we could say a lot about the quote unquote robber barons. I would defend them in a lot of ways too. But in terms of regulation, look, if you're a business owner, like if I run Comcast, it is in my shareholders' best interest for me to do this cartel bit and get the government to regulate the little guys out of the market, because that's going to drive up my share prices. And so you can't have these companies doing it. You have to have politicians doing it. The problem is when we say lobbying, well, what does lobbying really mean? It's not just going and asking Congress. Okay. Lobbying also means sending them on vacation, taking them out to dinner, buying champagne, having a party where you invite all the senators to, bribery. is what we're talking about. Legal bribery.
Yeah, well, and also, like I was saying, like Sam Altman might not ever like run for political office, but like I said earlier, like he wants to be on this, commission, so to speak, which means that he does have a political interest, even if it's just basically
Even if
like
it's just a business interest.
well, basically like all these tech people, they do want to be bureaucrats, government bureaucrats too, just without the election process and having to campaign and whatnot. So like in a weird way, they're asking for government jobs, even though they don't need it. So
Government jobs, government hand, but they don't need it, but it piles onto the pile of fucking gold that they got going on, right? And then they use these kind of positions and references to move up the ladder. I mean, this is how soft power works. But all I'm saying is, with you're letting boomers regulate it, especially. This is what I would say. If we're gonna regulate AI at all, it needs to not be done by a bunch of boomers that don't even understand how to use Facebook.
right, no, and that was again, that was Sachs's other point, was like, and this is kind of the point that I've taken too. Like, I don't want AI to be regulated next, because I agree with you why it's bad. But my feeling is, well, it's probably going to get regulated anyway. So can we at least get regulated by someone who understands what AI is and who isn't still asking, what is a Substack? Does it stack upon things? And, oh, it's just a newsletter? Like, if you're going to regulate something, at least understand it. So.
Well, I mean, most of these people, you see them on Twitter and it's not them anyway, right? They're boomers and they just have an assistant who's a social media person, right? Who does all the... I mean, the Biden administration does this. Joe Biden's Twitter is not Joe Biden. Like, I don't think anybody would dispute that it is, right? Trump's was Trump's. You could tell.
Yeah, you could tell when it was Trump, and then you could tell when it was, the unofficial, or no, the official, like,
the
run
corpo,
by the office.
The corpo sounding stuff that was more low key was definitely somebody in his circle, but Trump was, you could tell he did Miss Covfefe, just, which could happen to anybody, all I'm saying is they don't understand even basic shit like Twitter and Facebook and even YouTube to a large degree. Like, you remember a few years ago, the whole Elsa Gate thing, and they had hearings on that, right?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And the solution that they came up to it was like to basically, tyrannical iron fist the whole internet, because think of the children, right? And it was like, well, no, like here was the real issue with the Elsa Gate, like at a very basic level, is that it was listed under the YouTube Kids, which is a separate app on phones and tablets that is specifically supposed to be curated for children. And they were having explicit sexual content, explicit violent content that focused on, they'd have hooks to get the kids in, like Spider-Man impregnates Elsa. Well, kids are curious about where babies come from, right? And that's what gets them in the door. Shots. They'd have a lot of videos about shots or toilets or farting, right? But and because they get clicks that way, because little kids are little kids, and the Joker farted on Spider-Man, ha 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 ha, right? And they'll watch it 5,000 fucking times. But in that video too is some way more questionable shit than that. This is all on the fucking YouTube Kids app, including graphic violence and sex and pedophilia. All of this is on the YouTube Kids app. Actually, I would argue that it was more the Wild West than regular YouTube. Because if we said a cuss word, we're getting demonetized, and these people have billions of views on these disgusting videos. And so the problem was, You should not advertise your app as being curated for children if it's not, and it was not curated. They can argue until they're blue in the face that it's too hard to curate that much content. Then don't do the kids app. Because I'll tell you right now, I got one of them Amazon Fire Kids tabs because it has the exact opposite type of parental control of like most tablets, right? And Amazon, people say a lot of bad things about Amazon. They actually curate their kids' content. One, so far, I found very little objectionable content politically, but more than that, there's a whole nother set of content that's inappropriate for children that has nothing to do with politics that people seem to forget about. Also not on the Amazon app, not in any of the games that it has curated, not in any of the TV shows and cartoons, not in any of the movies, not in any of the websites that it allows kids to go to. Everything is curated. And you can set the age range of the kid using the device. You can set how long the kid's going to be able to allow screen time. I have it strictly limited. Same thing with my Xbox, right? So this is possible. Like he's got a kid's account on the Xbox Series X. I have complete control of it. I can open up my phone and go to the Xbox Family app, see what he's playing right now. Well, he's not playing, he's in bed, but what he's playing, what he has played, what apps he's looked at, if he's gone to an advertisement, if he tries to buy anything, it immediately sends an alert to my phone and asks, hey, do you want to give him some money to buy this? And usually that answer is fucking no. The kid's got more games than God. He's got the Game Pass. And then grandma keeps buying him fucking disc games, which I don't even, it drives me nuts because he wants to change games so often. And it's like, hey, Dad, I need your help. You know, you guys have been in voice with me when he says that. He comes down and he's like, Dad, I need your help and I got to go run. Half the time I'm changing his fucking game disc. Regardless, even if he puts a disc in of a game that he's not allowed to watch or play, it's just going to tell him no. And it's going to send an alert to my phone. Right? It's not hard to curate this content. So, look, you know, to circle back to what the point of this all was, YouTube absolutely could put out a kids app with curated content. Instead, they put out a kids app full of disgusting to almost anybody's sensibilities, not just like, oh, left-wingers were, everybody found it fucking weird and disgusting, right? It was universal. Right. Like, this is horrific. And then the answer to the fucking was to create an act of Congress that would essentially censor the whole goddamn internet. And it's like, but that's not the fucking problem, bro. The problem is if you branded this as a curated children's app, it needs to be curated. And if you're not going to curate it, don't fucking do it.
No. Well, yeah, right. Well, and then, you know,
Toys R Us doesn't have a dildo shelf. You know what I mean? You don't walk into Toys R Us and be like, hey, where's the fucking fleshlight section? God damn it. Shit gets me so mad. It's so easy. It's so easy for these companies to create parental controls that work and are effective and the parents happy with. Now, you have to get the parents to use them for them to be happy with them. A lot of parents don't curate any of their kids' content. That's fine for them. But for anybody who doesn't want their kid watching Spider-Man impregnate Elsa in the butt, you don't need to fucking shut the whole internet down to do that. You just need to say, oh, YouTube Kids, huh? You either need to fucking make it actually for kids or not have it. And if you have it and it's not fucking curated and it's not for children, then we can fine you. Easy. Simple.
And then the other problem too, though, was, okay, so that whole thing with YouTube Kids was used to justify a bunch of other
that had nothing to do with it. Literally nothing to do with Elsagate at all. And all they're like, you know, we also need real ID for the internet. And we also need fucking let's bring back fucking SOPA and PIPA and all this fucking shit. No, you just need to say, hey, if you make a kids app, it better be for fucking kids. If it's not for kids, we're going to drag you in front of the FTC and ask you why. That you're lying to children. Also, don't collect children's data as such. That was real simple. That's all they had to fucking do to deal with this fucking problem. Don't collect children's data like that, because that was another part of the problem. They were collecting children's birth dates, collecting their names, locations, IP addresses, things like that. Of course, TikTok still does all that, by the way.
Yeah.
So nothing has really changed. But then also, if you make a kids app, it should be for kids. And if it's not, we're going to fine you like $80 million every time we find a violation. That shit ends like that. That's a regulation that would make sense. Of course, that wasn't even in any of the proposals. It wasn't even suggested.
No.
None of it. And that's why we
No.
need to vote out boomers.
Yeah, that's you know, that. Well, I couldn't have said any better myself. Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, like that whole YouTube Kids thing, what specifically to YouTube, right? It led to a bunch of different stuff on the internet was bad too, but that whole overreaction led to channels like mine being justified for banishment because we were posting questionable content regarding vaccines or January 6th. Like, I noticed that, like, that's when all that stuff really started, was because of Elsa Gate. So,
Yeah, well, and then they transferred over to fucking misinformation. It's like, okay, one, if you consider misinformation a problem, and again, I'm almost a free speech absolutist in most cases, but if you want that kind of stuff to be dealt with, that's a separate issue from the YouTube Kids app, right? But they everything together, all misinformation, and we need a Ministry of Truth, and which, like, fucking most 1984 shit you ever heard. But the Biden administration decided that 1984 was a handbook, and here we are, and nothing got addressed.
for
No,
real.
those Elsa videos are still there, by the way. What happened?
Oh yeah, I know.
What happened
I
was
know.
is parents stopped using the YouTube Kids app. Unfortunately, a lot of parents just let their kids watch regular YouTube on their phones and shit.
Well, I mean,
Completely unsupervised, right?
yeah.
And that's the real problem. We don't allow my son YouTube at all. Like, he doesn't do YouTube. He's 7. Like, no way. I know people that have 3-year-olds and they sit them in front of a tablet all day watching goddamn Coco Melon and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is the recommended, right? The next video, the auto plays that's recommended leads you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And next thing you know, your kid is watching actual, like, horrific violence.
I mean, I hate to laugh, but it's just like, it's so, like, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Like, contrast that to my mom, who, like, I would watch videos when I was a kid that were like actual video tapes on, like, on like fire, on like fire trucks, and like and like even that, like she would watch those videos with me to make sure that they were like okay and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, and that was back in the 90s when you had to like actually put like tapes into the actual.
Well, you had to go to the video store to get them. And
yeah,
at the video store, there was a section for kids tapes. And in the back room was a section for fucking pornography. They didn't put the pornography with the fucking kids tapes. That's all this is.
Right.
That's why I use the example of walking into Toys R Us looking for the fleshlights, right? Because that's what they're doing.
Well, but what I'm saying though too is, like, part of it is on YouTube, yes, but part of it is also on the parents. Because, well, like I said, like my mom and my dad, like, at least put like effort into like what I watch and what I played. I mean, like, Now, granted, I mean, like, my dad didn't want me playing Grand Theft Auto, and I got around that and played it anyway. But
Look,
like,
kids are gonna get into stuff that you would not like them to. The problem is how easy it is to do if you're not paying attention. I
oh yeah,
years and years ago, I did a podcast with a good longtime friend of mine, Augustus Invictus, and he's got like 11 kids or something like that. And one of the
oh
things we talked
yeah,
about, which made that interview really special to me, it's one of my favorites of all time that I've done, was we talked about this. There is nobody to teach us, just like we were talking about boomers regulating things. We are the first generations of parents in the digital age, and there is no guidebook. There's no guidepost on how you deal with it. And a lot of people just don't, and they don't think about it, and they give their kids a tablet or a phone with unfettered access to the internet. That is their fault. However,
well,
when it's the YouTube Kids app, you know,
yeah,
that's YouTube's fault. They need to curate that, because what they're saying to parents is, you don't got to worry. We got this. We curated this already for you. And they didn't.
well,
They're lying.
well, it's that, but also uh, like how, like what I've noticed is this newer generation of parents, they seem to, and again, not every parent, but I've noticed that like they have this weird like cognitive dissonance where it's like, okay, I know how to use a smartphone effectively, and I know how to use a tablet effectively. Therefore, my kids will know how to use it responsibly coming out of the womb. Um, just
That's not the thought
because.
process, though. You got the thought process. You've identified the problem, but here's the thought process. The thought process is, if I put them in front of the goddamn tablet, they shut the fuck up. That's the thought process. It's a digital babysitter for a lot of people. And the problem is tablets are actually like more addictive to children than television.
Oh,
They just
oh yeah,
inherently, by the nature of it being involved in stuff, and some kids obviously won't use it. That's why I say we have a limit on screen time here, right? For the boy, and we go out and play and we do normal stuff, but he's allowed some screen time. A lot of
sure,
parents aren't
sure.
as thoughtful about this as I am, and I understand that. But oftentimes,
Well,
the problem that you're identifying is just them being lazy parents, and they're like, well,
right.
if I didn't give him the tablet with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, what would he be doing? Running around, throwing things, being a rambunctious little kid, because little kids are rambunctious, all of them, across the board. Some are more calm than others, some are not calm, but little kids will run around, get into shit, yell,
So,
scream, cry, shit their fucking pants. All of that stuff happens. That's real life. Kids are kids, man. And it's both like a pain in the ass and an absolute the greatest joy I've ever had in my life. It is a lot easier to sit the kid in front of a fucking tablet. I do have to go the extra steps to not just do that 8 to 12 hours a day when he's at home from school. He's just playing with a fucking tablet. Well, one, if he does that, he's gonna get fat. Two, he's actually not that interested in, like, he plays his tablet, he loves his tablet, he plays some games on it, he watches like Marvel fucking Lego stuff or whatever, and then he wants to go down to the park and play with the other kids.
you know
So,
what?
need a
You know what?
balance.
Like, I don't want to ask too much like personal information, but if I were to bet you anything, I bet your son has a pretty fantastic imagination
Yeah,
for a
very much
kid.
so.
And
Very
see,
much so. He loves telling
I,
stories. His new
yeah,
game when he meets other kids like at the park is that there's a flying snake chasing them, and at first they'll be like, what are you talking about? And he's just so insistent that within 5 minutes they're all running away from the fucking snake.
yeah. I mean, I was the same way with my friends. We would all play like, super. Sometimes we would like play Call of Duty or something, right, on the on the Xbox or PlayStation or what have you. And then we would like go and play like, you know, Call of Duty in real, IRL side with like, water guns or hell, even sticks,
When I
you
when I
know.
re- when I refer to my childhood and the games that we'd play, NES is more what comes to mind. But yeah,
Right.
we'd play some of those games on NES, but also like we all were outside all the fucking time. The only time we touched our NESs was after sundown and after dinner when we had to go inside anyway. I, like I lived outside as a kid, basically. Our parents never knew where we were until we fucking came in at night. Um, and you can't really do that nowadays. If you let your kid run free like that, somebody will call child services on you because people are Karens and busybodies and
Yeah.
whatever. But I take him to the park, and when I'm at the park, the wife's a little more hands-on. But when I'm at the park, I'm just gonna sit there and watch.
Well,
I'm not,
sure. I mean that's how most, dads. But I mean like but the other thing too is in
you
like
say that there ain't not as much as you think. Like I do stand out from a lot of dads because
are are
they're
dad
less involved a lot of times, or they're not there
well
at
no
all.
well no I know that, but also like um
You don't see a lot of dads at the park these days. I'm the one,
yeah, no,
unfortunately,
that's a bummer.
or school events, right? I'm like the one dad at all the school events. But
Yeah.
to be fair on that respect, they're during the day and I work from home. So I can swing it. I work for myself. I work from home. I make my own hours. I can go down. He had like I think I mentioned it last week, a fundraiser where they run to raise money for the school or whatever. And I went
Yeah.
down there cheering them on. Not every dad can go at 1 p.m. in the afternoon to the school. Totally understand that. But they don't go to the PTO meetings. They don't go to the nighttime events. You don't see a lot of dads. And again, that's anecdotal from my experience, but it is
Right.
a thing that I see.
No, I don't think you're wrong. My point overall is in general, it seems like both you and your wife are very involved in your son's life, and all these parents who are just letting the tablet and then the school system raise their kid, they're not develop. Now I could be looking at this from a really cynical like viewpoint, but they're letting the technology raise their kids, and they're not developing memories
It's not even
of their
cynical.
kids.
I did a video. The thing is, whenever I do important videos, nobody watches them. But I did a video on the effect of, specifically, it was about TikTok, but social media in general on the memory in children. And it objectively, scrolling TikTok reduces 13-year-olds' attention spans. So
It
these
it
things are
doesn't.
causing harm.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, I mean, it, again, like it's really, it really does boggle my mind to think how far we've come technologically in such a short time, because I just graduated high school like 10 years ago. I just got a notification on Facebook for my high school class's 10-year reunion like the other day or something, right? When I was in high school, all we had all we had at the time was Facebook and Twitter, and Instagram had just come out, but
We
it
had
wasn't
uh we had GeoCities and Napster when I was in high school. and,
yeah,
and notice those aren't really social media, right? Social media is a very new concept. And this is what I was getting at with the Augustus Invictus thing, is there's no older generation to teach us how to handle this. And that's why a lot of these parents don't, they found out that it's basically a cheat code to stick a tablet in your kid's hand and they'll sit down and shut up and be good. And they don't think about the long-term ramifications of this.
Yeah. Well, like,
There's a
in so
reason
mu-
that screen time is constantly talked about word is because they've done studies on this, and too much screen time is bad for children, period.
yeah, but like the fact that they're doing studies on like TikTok specifically, like in general, is amazing to me because like TikTok is like new,
Mm-hmm.
like
But
brand new as far as like apps.
it's unique in that it's the short form video content, and you can just flick it up, flick it up, flick it like Twitter, but instead of
Yeah.
words, it's just video. And this doesn't, if it doesn't grab my attention in 3 seconds, I'm skipping it. That act over time reduces their fucking attention span. It's literally causing ADD. That's what it is. It's causing ADD in children that don't otherwise have it. Now, you could argue that maybe some of the fucking television programming and video games in our upbringing had the same effect, but much less pronounced than this. And that
Okay,
would
yeah,
that would
well,
account for an uptick in ADD cases in the 90s and 2000s, sure. But this is like the graph goes like this. Up, up, up through the roof.
yeah, well, I mean, so it's funny they mention that with TV and whatnot because like I have two younger siblings who are way younger than I am. And I remember a few years ago when I went back to Colorado, I was watching you know, Saturday morning cartoons with them. And I mean I was playing with my phone mostly, but you know, I could hear what was on the cartoon and whatnot. And a lot of the vast majority of the cartoons didn't even have like a coherent plot point. Like the cartoons that were on when even I was a kid, like they had a plot that you like at least like had to kind of follow and like pay attention to. Um, but like now, cartoons just don't even do that. It's just
Well, they found a link with the attention span in channel surfing in the 90s. There's a lot of studies about that. And then think about TikTok is just an accelerated version of that. That even if you find the show you're looking for as you would when you're channel surfing, right? You're going to channel surf, and then you find something and you're going to stay there for a while. TikTok, I think, is like 2 minutes maximum. So you're going to be back on the
yeah.
channel surf almost immediately. There's a lot of reasons why TikTok is worse, but the graph goes from like a slightly inclined flat line to straight up in terms of the amount of children with ADHD, ADD, and autistic spectrum disorders. And they're
Oh yeah.
finding a relationship with all of this in technology. And I mean, societally, there's a lot of suggestions I could make, but practically, and the only real thing, I can say or do is what I do is just be really, really involved. That's what you as a parent can do. But asking for this shit to change, I don't know how. You can't make people be better parents. You know what I mean? I guess education, but like the thing about that is all this like, health and corpo education that they do people. It's always like it's corpo, right? So you're gonna have some nurse saying, "Okay, parents, well, no screen time at 9 p.m." and these people aren't gonna fucking listen. It's like the lady lecturing you not to smoke when you're in high school, right? Like, of course, yeah, everything they're saying is true. You know what I mean? But you're still gonna light up afterwards. Like, I don't
Well,
know.
one, it's like it seems to be that like a lot of the I mean the other thing I can't stand um is like, and I'm not even a parent, but the one thing that like drives me crazy is like when I'll be like out in public and I'll see like a parent, right? But they're trying to be BFFs with their kids instead of trying to be like parents.
Yeah, I guess to some degree, I'm friends with my son, but I see what you mean.
Well,
Sometimes they give them whatever they want, and
Yeah.
basically, you're not talking about that. You're talking about spoiled brats, really.
yeah, I'm not.
But you're not a parent, so you don't want to say it like that. But I'll say it for you.
Well,
Yeah, you're talking
yeah.
about parents that raise their kids to be annoying, spoiled brats, and when they're supposed to say no, they say, "Would you please just consider maybe calming down?"
Yes, that is exactly that is exactly what I. That is exactly what I mean.
And like, I'm not old school. We don't believe in hitting our kid, right? Under any
No,
circumstances.
I'm
However,
not.
if he hears me do the dad voice, he cries like I hit him.
But
If I do the dad voice, he knows he's fucked.
But you're also not like you're also not going up to your son and saying, "And my God, I can't believe I'm about to repeat this," but I overheard a guy say to his son, "I just want to be your friend, bro," and it's like fuck off with, like, I get it, you want to be friendly with your kid, but like that's not the
parenting books tell you to do. Dr. Spock ruined parenting for many generations to come. No, there's a mentality of like you should, and it's not Dr. Spock like from Star Trek. It's Dr. Spock, the guy that wrote the parenting guide or whatever.
No, I know exactly who you mean.
Yeah, and so his thing was that you should just let your child creatively express themselves in whatever manner that they see fit, and never ever intervene. Yeah, fuck you, motherfucker. Fuck you. If my kid was like hitting a girl that ain't creative expressing himself, he's about to get himself in some deep shit. You know, there are things.
Yeah.
There is look. On the other hand, sometimes my wife is like, "Oh my God, stop that," and I'm like, "No, let him." You know, I actually, my wife gets pissed at me because a lot of times when we're out with the kid, I do like a bit, and my bit is the fun police. And so she'll be like, "Hey, stop." And I'll be like, "Yeah, we got a 182 out here, child having fun." Yeah, she gets super mad at me about that, but
I'm not even sure that's a bit. I'm not even sure that's a bit anymore. It seems like to me that just seems like you're like you should be saying, "Well, son, here's what life will be like in the future if the if the woke people that dad is on the internet with, that this is what happened."
well,
Sam.
no, it's just that she's like, he's climbing a thing, right? And she's worried he's gonna fall off and hurt himself. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. He'll probably be fine if he does, though. He's a kid. He's a little boy. You gotta let him. You gotta let him spread his fucking legs and have some fucking fun.
That's also her maternal instinct, I guess. Yes,
yeah. Mom should be like that.
She really wanted to say something, I think.
I was just saying that this has been a great episode because we haven't really talked about politics very much.
True.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, so that's the other thing is we'll talk politics when we need, when there's something relevant, but
since we're getting it in, Mike Pence is gonna announce for 2024. Good luck, Mike. You'll need it.
None of these people have any sort of like charisma or political sense. It's actually astonishing. I mean, these people talk like, "Oh, we'll get rid of Trump, and then what? And then what? We're gonna run another McCain. We're gonna run another Mitt Romney kind of candidate." I mean, this idea that you can moderate on like
I'm sure there's like 5 other Bushes we could have run.
Yeah, like this idea that you can moderate on charisma and policy and everything you fucking believe in other than like war and this is somehow a cohesive winning strategy seems absurd. And it's outer party loser nonsense. And that's really what we're up against in the GOP, is a bunch of people who are literally comfortable with being a member of the outer party. If they had any political instinct, if they had any charisma, they'd be a Democrat.
True.
Why, like,
Yeah.
why would you be a Liz Cheney? Why would you be a Mitt Romney? Why, like, at that point, why be a fucking liberal
If you had
conservative?
if you had charisma and sense right now, and didn't care about the politics at all, which a lot of them seem, that's what you're describing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would be the outsider Dem.
Yes,
You would be what's her face in Arizona there that
Shit.
they all
Tulsi
said,
Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, exactly.
Or
You could
or Carrie Lake, I guess.
Carrie Lake's not a Democrat.
Oh.
No,
Yeah.
I meant cinema. Kristen Cinema,
Oh,
right?
Oh, Kristen Sinema.
Oh, yeah.
She portrays herself as the outsider Dem. Now nobody believes that, but like the point being is she got a little.
RFK.
She's got political savvy. She's got some charisma, and she's an outsider candidate. RFK Jr. is another good example. Outsider candidate. Yeah, if you were that's the spot to be where you're going to get the most like clout, I guess.
Why would you want to be a member of the outer party? Like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be the loser?
Ask the libertarians.
I mean, the libertarians at least they can like put on a leather jacket and pretend to be like the noble losers, right?
Yeah.
Like, at least they can like virtue signal.
They want to be big fishes in the small pond. You're talking about people that want to be big fishes in a big pond, but it's the polluted one.
Yeah. Why be the Republican that like goes to the BLM rally and loses it to Obama and does the thing? Like, why be part of the establishment and not be really part of the establishment to its full extent? It's cringe, it's lame, it doesn't make any sense, and I fear people trying to bring us back to that, and I'm just wholly uninterested in it. I mean,
I just created an ad for Mike Pence, and it's just going to quote Shmuley, and it's going to be like, it's cringe and it's lame. Pence 2024, it's cringe and it's lame.
And so Shmuley, to your point earlier, like about how we didn't bring up politics, like, so here's the thing with that, right? Is like, I've done the type of show before where I cover every minute thing in politics, like, that no one cares about. Like, I've done that before. But like, my whole thing is like the day-to-day like political nerd stuff, like, yeah, it's entertaining for us to talk about, but like in the long run, no one cares about. Like, obviously, like, there were things like, like Rhino Ron, or connection issues Ron, like getting on, like, that was a real. I guess what I'm saying is like politics. Like, I guess I if I'm not interested in it, if it's not relevant to me, then why would it be relevant to the audience? Whereas like AI, like, is so groundbreaking right now. And
no, I agree with the course of the show. I guess my point was basically to posit that question. Why, if you're a Machiavellian grifter, you want to be part of the establishment, obviously, that's why you oppose the Trump people, right? Like, these people, why do they exist? What's in it for them? Why are they so pathetic and lame and stupid?
I can tell. Here's my theory, at least. My theory is that they were in power for so long, and when Trump got into office, they got kicked out of, the party changed, but now
they were the loser party then too.
Yeah, that's my point.
At least since Bush, right?
They were, but they were. You're not wrong. Neither of you are wrong. But from my perspective, they didn't care because they were in charge of the party and they could do whatever the fuck they wanted. And they were mad. They were mad when Trump got into office because it was no longer their party; it was our party.
I guess that sort of answers it. I mean, a lot of these people probably got in there when there was more of a like. It wasn't so. We weren't basically like a one party state, right?
And now they're basically.
I have an analogy as to why, though.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be the perpetual loser, right? The same reason that there's guys that maybe not so much now, but Sam will get this because wrestling, right? There are guys that their whole career was built upon being a jobber and losing to other guys, right? And it's because it's consistent work. It's mostly safe. You got your niche. You're here. You can come out. And even those guys would have gimmicks, right? Like the Brooklyn Brawler and Barry Horowitz would pat himself on the back and shit like that. Gilbert, if everybody remembers that one. Like these guys existed to put the other guys over. That's what Republican establishment was doing. They exist to put the fucking Democrats over.
Yeah, they're just so used to losing, like that's what they're most comfortable with, I guess.
Well, and it pays well. Like those jobbers could pay their health insurance. They put food on the table for their kid. They weren't making Hulk Hogan money, right? But they were fucking providing for their family. That's why they're going to stay there. And in this case, it's more than that because they're getting like stock options and free fucking trips to Aruba and all this other fucking shit. There's fringe benefits to being a jobber. And let's just face it, like the neocon establishment had become jobbers and they're jobbers now. And DeSantis wants to be the head jobber. He wants to be the head of the JOB squad and go over there and take the L for Trump. Actually, what I think he's doing, I think he's banking on the DOJ taking Trump out, which I wouldn't bet. Look, if there's one guy not to bet against, it's the guy that wrote The Art of the Comeback. Just saying.
Well, just I'm wholly uninterested in having some cope politics where like I try to justify how like, well, Jeb Bush would be much better than Joe Biden because, you know, Jeb will reduce taxes by 1%. And, you know, Joe wants to increase the IRS funding by $80 billion. But Jeb, you know, he's at a sensible $72 billion.
Well, hold on. You know, Obama wants all the kids. Biden wants all the kids to be trans, and Jeb would put a cap on that. You know, only 40%.
A sensible cap. You know, it's just wholly uninterested and interesting, and it makes me consider that when you're in that position, why even bother? And that's, I guess that's a concept that I think a lot in politics. There's certain situations wherein no action is better than action, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but then again, it goes like both. The why and bother approach is very interesting though, Shmuley, because again, like you've got the GOP, you know, like politicians who are so boring and uninteresting that they don't motivate their base to do anything.
Yeah, the JOB politicians.
or the JEB exclamation mark.
But no, there's certain situations wherein like the position that the left takes only makes sense in context of the Republican position. And so I could foresee there being certain examples wherein it's literally just better to not.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because they develop. I mean, it's funny. Like leftists like to call us reactionaries, but like what seems to drive a lot of, especially the radical left, is this like reaction to not just reality, but like the 1950s view of society that they've already killed.
Yeah,
And they need you to like come along and oppose them in order to like give context to their nonsense.
yeah. Well, see, a lot of that bought into this delusion that the 1950s still exists, and like, I think this is kind of the same thing you're saying. They want you to believe that
I think I can illustrate it better. Like the French Revolution is going, right? When the French Revolution was going, they're like, well, we're going to remake the days of the week. It's now going to be an even amount of days of the week. And we're going to get rid of all these old names. Eventually, the stuff makes no sense and it just fails. And then eventually they sort of move on. I think you've seen this in communist states, right? There's certain things like
oh yeah, definitely.
like we're gonna get rid of the distinction between men and women or whatever. But like once the totalizing regime comes, they're just like, oh well, that doesn't work, and then you get some level of like reform.
And
pushback.
That pushback. Can I read you a little bit of the pushback? I think you guys will like this. Target has lost $12 billion in the last week. Bud Light has lost $26 billion in the past 2 months. And Kohl's stock dropped 6.5% in 2 days. This is what winning looks like. I've always said you got to speak with your wallet to these people. But the problem is you can't say, okay, guys, let's organize the boycott, because that doesn't work. But what does work is people get fed the fuck up, and they do it on their own. And we can't even talk them out of it now. You can't talk the normies into going out and buying Bud Light now. That's not going to happen.
When you combat them, remember that they're rebelling against reality. They're rebelling against you. They're hateful, spiteful.
They're rebelling against God in many ways.
Yeah. And so like their shit's going to fail. And it just brings up an interesting question. It's like, well, what role did conservatism really play in people being fed up with these like woke companies shoving it down everybody's throat?
Not a whole lot. The only thing I will say is that in some cases, I've had people say to me, "Oh wow, this is what Rush Limbaugh was talking about all those years ago." But it's like that's not really a change, right? As much as it is admitting that we were right all along. And I'm not one of those types of people that has to gloat and say, I was right.
I don't think this is some great victory of the intentional like anti-woke media people, to which I guess I'm one of them. If we did play a role in it, it was simply that we basically baited them into hazard.
But two things. Baited them into hazard, correct. But the second one is our ability to share it finally reached normie eyes. They saw it, but the thing is, when you're sharing this stuff to normies, you have to strip out the political fucking bias on your end, or they're not going to watch it. And the Bud Light thing, it kind of was that, because all they had to do was watch Dylan. Get leftist craziness in front of them.
Yeah, and this is this is like I'm saying, with Dao Xiaoping, the guy who came in after Mao.
Yeah.
Right, and he's like, hey, actually a lot of that crazy shit, we're not going to do it anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not going to execute the farmers for producing excess to sell down at the river. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, which is why you get the modern Chinese, like, capitalist communist hybrid state that they've created with the full authoritarianism.
yeah, like at a certain point with these kind of things, you end up with a situation like that, right? You
Mhm.
end up with a situation where like the totalizing ideology fucking fails. I mean,
Mhm.
you saw it with Khrushchev and the Soviet Union, right? They're like, hey, Stalin went a little far. Now,
Mhm.
we can be cynical because the reason why Stalin went too far is because he was chopping off their heads.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But the outcome's the same.
Yeah, yeah. Eventually, this stuff just fucking fails.
Well, and the thing is, they're trying to chop off your kids' penises, right?
Mhm.
And that's very similar. Like, this is why I'll tell you, normies waking up. For me, it's actually the first like big normie awakening thing I saw among like parents that actually talking about having these conversations non-politically was the wet ass pussy song.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because they were like, when we were growing up, because most of them are millennials, right? Millennials are like the main group with children under 10 years old now. And when we grew up, yeah, there was dirty music, but they didn't play it on the radio all the time,
Yeah.
right? And that to them is like way over the line and made them very uncomfortable when they had their like 3, 4, 5-year-old child twerking to fucking wet ass pussy.
That's so fucked up.
It's true though. That was a thing that was going on, and I talked to quite a few parents, and the thing is, I don't bring up like all these times I'm saying I talk to normal people and parents. I don't bring up any of this shit.
Yeah, no.
I'm very quiet, actually.
It's weird because like when I was younger, like 18 to 20, right? 18 to 21, let's say. I was the I would admit I was the annoying political like nerd guy who would bring it up in every conversation. But after 2016, I became more like you, Max. I just kind of became the quiet guy who didn't really, bring it up. And then someone would say, it got to the point where people would say like, well, I'm a liberal, but this trans thing is a bit much, don't you think? And I would be like, yeah, it is a bit much. I will admit. So, some or something like that, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, it didn't used to be that crazy, huh? And again, a lot of these normies will say like they don't have a problem with trans people existing. What they have a problem with is what the trans people call validation. And they're like,
Yeah,
no, I don't have to. Like, you can pretend you're a dinosaur. I'm not going to.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like, because it's not true. Some of them will. They'll humor you if you're polite, and they'll call you miss or whatever, but they don't mean it.
well, humor. I think people will humor each other to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like if you're being nice about it, but if you're being belligerent about it, that's when people get really upset.
That's when people get belligerent back. It's ma'am, right? And everybody, normies, even people on the left, knew that was stupid. Like, getting that mad, you look like a dude, right? And you're walking into GameStop or whatever, starting to fucking, I think it was GameStop, starting a
Yeah,
fucking big problem over it because they said, sir. Well, they teach you that in the service industry, and at a glance, you're a sir. Sorry, not sorry. Like, and I understand you want validation. You want to. Here's the thing: most normies believe it like this: you can live your life and believe you are and dress however the fuck you want. I don't have to do it back. You're trying to. You can control your life. You can't control mine. But the
it
thing is, why is it language that they use? Because language, you think in language.
yeah
Controlling your language is a backdoor way to controlling your thoughts.
My
Well,
favorite,
yeah.
one of my favorite characters that I found was the oil change guy, who's just like, you know, overweight, overalls, greased up, big beard looking redneck. And I said, "Sir," to him. He's like, he's like, my name is Jeff, and you want to be careful doing that because you don't want to misgender people by accident. And he's
Right.
like, and I'm like, it's like, I understand, I'm Southern too, but just we want to be inclusive type deal. It was just funny to find like the woke millennial, fucking oil change guy.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by like they get you with the language, and you think in language, and so if they can control the words that you use, they can control what you the nature of your thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this
I
makes sense. This is how I control Sam.
Right.
wait. What?
Don't worry about it.
I I knew I was feeling MK Ultra a bit.
Oh yeah. So one final thing, because I am fucking dead ass tired, but this is something we should talk about, just because if you hear my voice, if you hear this part of the show, please go look at the CIA official website where they have leaked the entire contents of the MK Ultra 2 program. So not the one everybody's familiar with, but the second version of it. It's not MK Ultra, that's not the code name for it, but it's essentially the same thing from the 80s, and it's all declassified. And if you read all 29 pages of it, you might be horrified. So go check that out, because you should probably know what your government was doing, trying to control your mind.
Yeah, friendly advice though, folks. Considering it's like 12:30 Eastern here, you might want to do that in the morning because this doesn't seem like it would be a good bedtime rating to me.
No, it's the best, because I want you to have nightmares about it, so you get the reality of how horrific what our government did in the 80s to its own citizens was behind closed doors.
Did
And
it have?
and they have released it publicly and then let it slide under the radar, and nobody's talking about it. And I just want to bring attention to this because it's so fucking if you read this shit, an official government document on an official government website, you're going to be like, what the actual fuck? The X-Files is real.
Wasn't was that the one that had the CRT mood
No.
manipulation?
No,
Okay.
nothing related to CRT, but it had,
Not critical race theory, like literal cathode ray tube.
it might have. I don't remember everything that was. There's some fucking wild shit in there. They literally drilled holes in people's brains and put fucking. Read it. Just read it. The government is telling you that it was drilling holes in people's brains, and nobody seems to care.
Well, honestly, at this point, Max, nothing would surprise me anymore. Like,
you know me, I'm not a conspiracy guy.
no,
But this isn't a conspiracy. This is what the CIA published on the CIA website. Parts of it are even redacted. I'm surprised some parts aren't redacted because of the actually horrific nature of what is being discussed.
Max, you know me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist either, but I will tell you, I'm not sure if you were listening to the show yet when I had this conversation with Apex, but in short, like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, COVID did change things for me in the sense that, like, I never would have thought that the government would have actually done like a lockdown like they did with COVID. I was always like, well, that's some real Alex Jones shit. And then when they did that, I was like, well, fuck. If they can do this, then what else can they do? It wasn't all like it wasn't like and I'm not looking at it from a doomer perspective. I'm looking at it from a I'm just not surprised if they actually had like aliens at Area 51 and MK Ultra and shit like that.
All I know, I don't know if any of that, Area 51, whatever. I do know that if the government says there's nothing to see, there's something to see.
For sure.
But I just figured I had to get that one out. Go check out these recently released CIA documents. They will blow your mind. They certainly blew some people's minds back then too.
Yeah.
I just, before we wrap it up, thank you for being on here, Sam. Thank you for joining us, Max.
Well, I mean, considering I'm the one who hosts the show, thank you for being on here, Shmuley.
It was good having you here.
Happy to be here.
Let me just finish out. You can follow me at anon12376301335 on Twitter. And
he's not kidding, by the way.
And my closing thoughts are Rhino Ron, Raytheon Ron, Hate Speech Ron, Ron D. Sellout, Deceptive DeSantis, Repugnant Ron, Ron D. Censorious, Ron D. Shyster, Ron D. Saboteur, Remote Connection Problem Ron, Ron D. Controlled Opposition, Ron the Failed Deceiver.
Bravo, Shmuley. Bravo. My final thoughts are the following. AI is a tool. It's not good or bad. I guess the best way to explain this to conservatives who are afraid of AI, think about AI the same way you guys think about guns, right? Guns aren't good, nor are they bad. They're tools. They can be used for good or for bad. It's just how you use them. And AI is basically the same thing at this point, in essence. And that's that. Also, David Sachs, please come on the Whitfield Report. I know you're a supporter of Rhino Ron, but we would still love to have you. And if you could make the case more why Rhino Ron is not Rhino Ron, then we would love to have you for sure. But
also, Elon Musk, come on the Whitfield Report, please. Thank
yes.
you. Might as well shoot for the moon, right?
Well, yeah.
Donald Trump needs to come on the Whitfield Report.
Well, listen. Not only, if we're shooting big here, if Tesla could make me a power wheelchair, that would be fucking
based.
Cool. But anyway, we want to thank you for tuning into the show, and check out our sponsors and the links down below, and we'll talk to you down the road. Later, Gators.
Thanks for listening to The Whitfield Report on the NGC Network. Please visit Sam's website at www.thesamwhitfield.com and support Sam on Patreon at patreon.com/Whitfield Report. Until next time, God bless, God save this great nation, and God, freedom, legacy, in that order.